Hey, you got any copies of Sonic Advance? Sorry, but we don't got any Sonic Advance here. What do you mean? You gotta have one in the back. Yeah, no, no chance, dude. Also, I don't even work here. You know, it's sad to see games never get a single remaster. So, that's why we're gonna find out why Sega made Sonic Advance in the first place. It was 2001. Sega was losing a lot of money. They only had one choice to avoid bankruptcy. That being leaving the console wars and becoming a publisher. So they did, and struck a deal with Nintendo to port their Sonic games on Nintendo GameCube and on the Game Boy Advance. And then Sega teamed up with Studio Tims and created Sonic Advance. It was a love letter to the classic Genesis titles that was also mixed in with modern Sonic Adventure aesthetics. It had 4 playable characters, incredible music, and tight controls. It proved that 2D Sonic games still had it. When you boot up Sonic Advance, the first thing that hits you is just how great the game feels. The movement is smooth, the momentum carries over through loops and slopes exactly like it should, and the soundtrack sounds incredible. But what really made Sonic Advance special wasn't just the core gameplay, it was a variety of characters the game was offering. You weren't only playing as Sonic, you also had Tails, Knuckles, and even Amy as a playable character, each of them having their own signature moves. On top of that, the level design rewarded exploration. Instead of just holding right till the finish line, levels were filled with secret pathways, special stages, springs, and lots of rings. And we can't talk about Sonic Advance 1 without mentioning the tiny Chow Garden, that if you had a GPA to GameCube link cable, you could transfer your Chows directly into Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Sonic Advance proved that 2D games were still great in an era dominated by 3D games, selling over 1 million copies in the United States alone. Before we start going to Sonic Advance 2, let's talk more about Sonic Advance 1 characters and how different they are from each other. Well, we gotta start with Sonic, who still kept his signature speed while introducing modern mechanics like riding and somersaults. Then we have Tails, who still had his flying mechanics, making platforming much easier, being more like an easy difficulty for the game. And there is Knuckles, that still had all of his mechanics from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. And we can't forget about Amy, who really is a wildcard because she can spin dash at all, making her into a high-skilled character who depends entirely on her Pico Hammer. Also, she jumps higher than everybody else. Let's move on to Sonic Advance 2. Released just a year later in 2002, which is insane how fast they were able to finish the game in that small of a period. Teams introduced the boost mechanics, where if you ran at full speed for a few seconds, Sonic would break the sound barrier, leaving a motion blur trail behind him, and blasting through enemies without losing momentum. Something that we will see in other Sonic titles made by Dims. To complete this insane increase in speed, Dims also made the levels bigger. Stages like Leaf Forest and Music Plant were filled with loops, rails, and ramps, designed to keep your momentum and speed perfectly. They also added mid-air tricks, letting you perform flip to gain extra height or momentum off springs. But Sonic Advance didn't just expand on the speed and map designs, it also expanded on the character roster, introducing Cream the Rabbit and her Chow, companion named Cheese. Where aiming Sonic Advance 1 was more of a hard mode for the game, Cream is essentially the easy mode, because Cheese could literally auto-aim and obliterate any boss fight in seconds. However, Sonic Advance 2 wasn't all perfect. To unlock the special stages and collect all the 7 Chaos Emeralds, you had to find 7 hidden special rings in a single run, without dying. Despite the extreme difficulty spike to 100% complete the game, Sonic Advance 2 was a massive success, selling over 1 million copies worldwide. By 2004, Sega and Dims were ready to finish off the Sonic Advance trilogy, and Sonic Advance 3 was easily their most ambitious title yet. Instead of just giving you a standard character selection screen, Sonic Advance 3 introduced the tag team system. You had to pick a leader and a partner from the roster. This game gave you 20 unique team combinations, and every single pair changed how your character moved, jumped, or attacked. Pairing Sonic with Tails gave you the classic tag team abilities, while pairing Sonic with Knuckles gave him extra power. It added an insane level of depth and strategy that no other Sonic game has ever done before. On top of that, the game remade its structure entirely. Instead of moving from level to level, Sonic Advance 3 introduced hub worlds. You had to explore these hubs to find secret chows and unlock access to the main acts. Graphically and musically, Sonic Advance 3 was the peak of 2D Sonic games on the Game Boy Advance. The sprites were gorgeous, The background art was vibrant and the soundtrack had some of the best songs in the entire trilogy. It also gave us Emerald, a reconstructed Gizoid built by Dr. Eggman from the remnants of Emerald in the Sonic battle. Sonic Advance 3 felt like the ultimate combination of everything games had made on the Game Boy Advance. It also sold over 1 million copies worldwide. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't know why. Oh, right. How could I forget about the team nicknames? That if you pair Sonic with Tails, you get the nickname Unbreakable Bond. With Sonic and Knuckles, you get Fighting Buddies. With Sonic and Amy, you get Lovely Couple. And with Cream and Amy, you get Team Jumblee. Wait, I don't know what it means. Yeah, I gotta Google it. Hold on. Oh, yeah, it means in Japanese, girls pair. But I guess that's cool, yeah. So, if the Sonic Advance Trilogy was such a massive success, why did Sega completely forget about the games and lock them off on the Game Boy Advance? Why hasn't there been a single modern remaster, port, or even collection of games in the past 22 years? Well, the answer comes down to 3 major issues: legal nightmares, technical difficulties, and Sega selective memory. But first, the legal problems. Back in 2001, Sega just exited the console wars and needed help distributing games. They partnered with THQ to publish and distribute Sonic Advance games in North America. When THQ went bankrupt in 2012, their rights distribution licenses and assets were auctioned off and scattered across different companies. On top of that, the games were co-developed by DIMS. Reviving decade-old contracts between Sega and DIMS, an extinct publisher, creates a legal headache that Sega just doesn't want to deal with. Second, the hardware and aspect ratio problem. Game Boy Advance had a very specific screen resolution, that being 2040 by 160 pixels. Because the screen was so small, DIMS designed the game camera speed and enemy placement specifically around the tight boundaries. The third and last one is Sega Nostalgic Obsession, where Sega just released its old Genesis titles for the 10th time on modern platforms, making it that other 2D Sonic games like GBA and DS era to be forgotten and being left to rot. Well, at the end of the day, at least we got fans remaking the games. Thanks for watching, and bye bye. Also, if you stuck to the end of the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, maybe comment something. Thanks.